We've talked a lot on this show about Matthew Schaefer, the top-ranked prospect by most scouts in this year's NHL draft. Today, we focus on Michael Misa, the top-rated forward and number 2 overall prospect according to most scouts. We'll talk about the potential impact he could have on the New York Islanders and what he'd bring to the table next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, so you never miss an episode. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. We've got a busy show. We're going to talk a lot about Michael Misa, the top-rated forward in this year's NHL draft, and a player who a lot of fans want to see the Islanders take. We'll talk about what he brings to the table and his potential impact on this team. Update on the All-Star game situation. We'll have that from Gary Bettman's State of the League address. Plus, we'll talk about Mike Riley, his season, and his potential future, if any, with the Islanders. All that and more on today's show. We got to talk Michael Misa. And, we've talked a lot about Matthew Schaefer. The Islanders met with Misa. They took him to dinner just like they took Schaefer to dinner. And we'll see how that goes. Obviously, the Islanders going to keep it close to the vest. They're not going to say, oh, yeah, we much preferred Misa to Schaefer or Schaefer to Misa. No. And the Islanders are not just going to meet with 2 players. They're going to meet with several. They're going to interview a whole bunch more. But the fact that Schaefer and Misa are the first 2 that they're meeting with, I think, does speak volumes. Misa, 18 years old, won't turn 19 until February. The Oakville, Ontario native has good size, 6'1", 184 pounds, probably needs to put on some weight before he plays extensively in the NHL. But again, that's true of almost every 18-year-old draft product. He spent the last 3 years with the Saginaw Spirit. And, last year, 23-24, he had 75 points in 67 games, 29 goals, 46 assists. This year, he exploded. 62 goals in 65 games, 72 assists in 65 games. That's 134 points in 65 games, plus 45 on the plus minus. That's more than 2 points a game. Now, again, juniors is not the NHL. And just because the guy can score a goal a game and 2 points a game in juniors doesn't mean he's going to do that at the NHL level. In fact, I can almost guarantee he will not be that productive at the NHL level. And there are plenty of players in the NHL who are on 4th lines and are scoring 8 goals a year who had 40-goal seasons in juniors or, 30-goal seasons in college. That's not the point. The point is he is playing at an outstanding level, and he brings so very much to the table. One advantage that you have for Misa over Schaefer, being a year older or close to a year older, Misa is probably more likely to be ready to play in the NHL this season. Maybe not, but could be. We'll see, how that ends up playing out. But he's probably a little closer to the NHL than he is than Schaefer is. Both of these 2 players help address needs that the Islanders have. The Islanders need goal scoring. No question. They need speed. We've always said younger, faster, more skilled. Misa checks all three of those boxes. Schaefer does as well. Misa's skating is fantastic. He's got some explosiveness, but he can weave, he can cut, he can move, spin. He can basically force defenders. Defenders lose him. And that is really, really important. He can do a lot of the things that Matthew Barzal does. He's also very smart. He's a good passer. He makes the players around him, his line mates, better. And it's been a long time since the Islanders had someone like that consistently. Maybe, Pierre Turgeon, certainly, Brian Trottier, certainly. I'm thinking centers. It's been a while. Did John Tavares make some guys better? Yeah, he did, but probably not at the level that Misa potentially could fill. He knows how to support defensively. He'll even finish his checks, which is a very good thing. He knows how to protect the puck, knows how to make plays even when he doesn't have a lot of time and space. And here is something else that I think is really important as far as Michael Misa is concerned. He is really good in transition. And, centers out of the three forwards, they're usually the ones who have to come back the most. Maybe they'll take the puck from a defenseman behind the net and skate it out. Misa will help the Islanders, who have struggled for years with that transition game. Everydayers, you've heard me talk about this so many times, where the Islanders don't do well transitioning from defense to offense, where you get the puck and you skate or pass the puck so that you enter the offensive zone with momentum and create scoring opportunities from that transition. The Islanders don't have the speed and the skill up and down their roster to do that. And last year with Matthew Barzal out, it was even harder for the Islanders to do that because he was by far their best skater. So again, you got to figure this out if you're the New York Islanders. And do you go for the forward who could put the puck in the net? Do you go for the defenseman who will probably play 27, 28 minutes a game, where a top forward would play 22, 23? Defensemen can be on the ice more typically and get influence a game perhaps a little bit more in that respect. There are some really tough decisions that Matthew Darche and to a lesser extent Patrick Waugh have to make. And I really like both Schaefer and Misa. And the one thing I will say to Islander fans who are thinking about this, and I've seen so many comments back and forth on the YouTube page and on social media talking about this. The Islanders need both. They need more scoring. They need more defensemen. There is no defenseman in the Islanders system who projects to be a top pair, dominant, number one type defenseman. And other than Cole Yzerman, yeah, the Islanders forward prospect pool is perhaps a little better and a little deeper than the defense. You got Cole Yzerman, who's probably the only top-end potential goal-scoring talent. Not that, Danny Nelson can't contribute. There are a few other guys who have the potential to contribute, but they're not considered elite prospects. So you need both. And this pick, it's not about this season, okay? It's not. Yeah, Misa is more likely than Schaefer to play in the NHL this year. More likely, not guaranteed. Both of them could go to college. Or, Schaefer might spend another year in juniors. We don't know. But realistically speaking, regardless of that, 18-year-old hockey players typically are not major contributors. They show potential, but they're not there yet. And so you're not picking either Schaefer or Misa based on where they'll fit into the Islanders roster in 2025, 2026. If either one of them plays in the NHL this year, it is going to be the learning experience. It is going to be growing pains, okay? You want to see improvement over the course of the season. You want to see potential. You want to see flashes of what they are capable of becoming. But the ultimate question that Matthew Darche needs to answer: who makes a bigger impact on the Islanders franchise over the length of their career? 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, depending on how long they stay, whether you re-sign them, etc. All of this is what you have to think about. This season will be whatever it is. I think it's going to be an adjustment year. I know the Islanders are paying lip service to the idea of competing for the playoffs this year. And again, as of right now, their ceiling remains barely making or barely missing the playoffs and then probably going out in the first round. So the question is not who moves the needle in October. It's who moves the needle in 2028 and 2029 and 2030. That's the ultimate question you have to answer. And I think you can do really, really well with either one of these players. I think they're both going to be great. They're not considered generational talents. There is no Connor Bedard or, no Sidney Crosby in this draft, no Connor McDavid. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some darn good hockey players. And if they play their cards right, the Islanders are going to get one or more of them. All right, we've got more to get to on today's show. Gary Bettman, NHL commissioner, addressed the All-Star situation again. We'll talk about that. Plus, Mike Riley's season. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a Finnish defenseman who was with the Islanders in the early to mid-2000s for part of one season. Let's see if you can guess. This is a toughie. If you can guess who that is. We've got all that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Look, I love eating out, but not at the expense of my financial well-being. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. So before the Stanley Cup final every year, Gary Bettman, NHL commissioner, obviously not the most popular guy in and around the hockey world, but he addressed the media and basically was talking about the Islanders and their All-Star game, which was taken away from them. That was originally supposed to be the Islanders hosting the 2026 All-Star game. So it looks like Bettman is going to give the Islanders 2 events. And we still don't have a lot of specifics. There still is going to be an Olympic send-off event at the UBS Arena this February before everybody heads to Milan for the Winter Olympics. And then in 2027, there will be an all-star style event that promises to showcase some of the biggest names in the sport. So, again, what that send-off event next February is going to be, we don't know. And how many Islanders do you think participate in the Olympics? We know Team Russia will not exist, so Alexander Romanov, Ilya Sorokin, not going to be competing. Maybe Matthew Barzal and Bo Horvat, maybe Noah Dobson if he has a bit of a bounce-back season. Those are the Islanders that you would think would have a shot at being in the Olympics. But what is this all-star style event? I hope, sincerely hope, that it is not just another all-star game. All-star games are rather passé in this day and age. With the way TV coverage works now as opposed to how it worked 30 years ago, you could see any game or hear any game with any player that you want to follow for whatever, the cost is, depending on where you go to get it, whether it's ESPN Plus or, Center Ice, whatever the package is that you have, you can watch. You want to watch 82 games of the Utah Mammoth? You can do that now. So, all-star games, the idea of getting to see all the great players, you could see them anytime you want to see them nowadays. A lot of people can. So, it's not an all-star game, I hope. What I would love to see, more than anything, for 2027 is for the New York Islanders to be one of the host cities of another Four Nations type tournament. And, I would love to see Team USA, Team Canada, Team Finland, Team Sweden, maybe add a Team Europe or Team World, make it 4 teams, 5 teams, 6 teams, whatever it is. I would love to see that because the difference between the All-Star game and the Four Nations tournament was this. The players cared about Four Nations. They hustled. They played hockey. They hit. They got into fights even. All-Star game is like shinny. It's the equivalent of playground basketball. They're going to skate around. They're going to make fancy plays. They're going to cherry pick. Nobody's back checking. Nobody's working all that hard. It's just, it's not hockey. Four Nations was hockey. And having the national pride on the line added to it, and obviously the tension to whatever extent it exists between the United States and Canada based on tariffs and some of the comments made by politicians here only added fuel to the fire for a lot of people. I really, truly want to see something resembling Four Nations. It would be a special event for New York area hockey fans. And you have, 3-4 games of a tournament here. First of all, season ticket holders would be rewarded big time to be able to get tickets for those kind of games. And it would make Long Island for that week, 2 weeks, whatever that's going to be, or even weekend, the focus of the hockey world for that period of time. I would love to see it. That is what I'm hoping for. Look, if they're going to do another All-Star game, it's better than nothing. The Islanders have not hosted an All-Star game since the early to mid-'80s. It's overdue. I know the Nassau Coliseum wasn't considered a state-of-the-art arena once you got into the mid to late 90s. It was old, all the knocks they had against it. Still one of the best places ever to watch a hockey game based on the sight lines and the noise and the atmosphere. But I get it, okay? But boy, that would be a great showcase for the arena, for Long Island, for hockey. It would be great to see. Not as good as a Stanley Cup final being held here, which hopefully we'll get to see some point in the future, but maybe the next best thing. So let's see what it turns out to be. I'm still waiting. Hey, Gary Bettman, we're waiting for specifics here. I know you don't have them yet, and it'll take a while, but we'll see. We'll see. More to get to on today's show. We're going to talk about Mike Reilly. What was his season like? What impact did he have? And we'll discuss his future role and impact with the team, if any. All that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. We continue our player-by-player look at the New York Islanders roster with Mike Reilly. Every day, as you know, we've been doing a player a day for the last 4 weeks. This week, we did Maxim Siplikov. We've discussed Adam Pelech. We've discussed Matthew Barzal, Kyle Palmieri, Bo Horvat, Semyon Varlamov. We're going through the entire roster. Today, it's Mike Reilly. And this had to be both a frustrating and a almost miraculous season for Mike Reilly. He gets hurt early in the season, and while he's hurt, they discover a previously undiagnosed heart condition that could be, serious. He ends up missing most of the season. Came back late in the year, played a few games, but, 18 games played all year. 2 assists, -3, 2 penalty minutes. The sample size is so small. He averaged only 15 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time. But the sample size is so small that you almost have to take the statistics. Like, how do you analyze it? Yeah, his time on ice was down a little more than 2 minutes a game as compared to last year. But you know what? It made sense. It made sense because he's coming back from the condition. He hadn't played. You want to take, your time and make sure he's healthy and can come back and play. Reilly is a good skating defenseman. He's a third pair guy. He can give you second power play minutes. Assuming he's healthy, he gave you 24 points in 59 games in 2023-2024. I think his style fits what Patrick Waugh and Matthew Darche said they want to do. He's a good skater, good passer. He's okay in his own zone. Not great, not terrible. He's a veteran. He's smart. He is 31. He'll be 32 next month. And he is also a free agent right now. Reilly is, as of right now, an unrestricted free agent. Left-handed shot. Could I see the Islanders bringing him back on a 1 or 2 year contract for, $1 million, $1.5 million a year? Yeah. Could I see him being a very useful 6th or 7th defenseman? Yeah. Would I be shocked if Matthew Darche, after already re-signing Adam Boqvist, instead signs Tony DeAngelo and doesn't bring, or Scott Perunovich and doesn't bring Riley back, yeah, I could see that too. If he comes back, you're back to the same role. 6th or 7th defenseman, second power play unit if need be, giving you 15 to 17 minutes a night, giving you a little veteran, experienced leadership. I think it's 50-50 at best that Riley is back. He seemed to like it here. I think his teammates respect him, like what he did. They backed him during his difficult time. I am very relieved that they discovered this condition before something serious happened, God forbid. And I am just really wishing Mike Riley well, that if he doesn't latch on with the New York Islanders for another season, that he can go somewhere else and resume his NHL career. He is an NHL quality defenseman, not an all-star, not a top pair or even probably second pair player, but he can help a team and do certain things really well. And I think he'd be a good fit for Patrick Roy. I'd re-sign him. Again, 1-year deal, million and a quarter, $1.5 million. But let's see whether or not Riley, A, wants to continue his career, B, wants to do it on Long Island, and whether he and Matthew Darsh can reach some kind of an agreement. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. This is a tough one, got to say it, because he only played 27 games with the Islanders. But today, June 6th, is the 53rd birthday of former Islanders defenseman Marko Kiprusoff, the native of Turku, Finland, and I hope I'm coming close to pronouncing that right. 6 feet tall, 195 pounds, a third-round pick of the Canadiens in 1994. Played 24 games for the Habs in 95-96, went back to play in Europe, came back and joined the Islanders for the 2001-2002 season, played 9 games in Bridgeport and 27 games with the Islanders, had 6 assists, 4 penalty minutes. He was an even plus-minus. Then went back to Europe and finished his career there, hanging up his skates after the 2012-2013 season. One of his better games as an Islander, December 18th, 2001, Islanders hosting the Oilers at the Old Barn, the Nassau Coliseum. Former Islanders goalie Tommy Salo is the netminder for the Oilers. Chris Osgood in between the pipes for the Islanders. And in this game, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Marko Kiprusoff ends up assisting on the Islanders' second goal of the game. It's scored by Sean Bates. Dick Tarnstrom gets the other assist. And that puts the Islanders ahead 2-1. They go on to win it 4-1 with Sean Bates scoring twice, including a shorty. Chris Osgood, 30 saves in this one. But for our Islanders' birthday of the day, Marko Kiprusoff, he had an assist. He was a +3. He had 2 shots on goal and played 24 minutes and 59 seconds. So only briefly an Islander, but Marko Kiprusoff is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale. Find Locked On NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, we'll do mailbag questions throughout this offseason. Email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders throughout this critical off season, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you anytime. Everydayers, we are back on Monday, unless some really big news drops over the weekend. We will continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders with Isaiah George. We'll have some more news, hopefully coming out of the scouting combine as it wraps up over the weekend, and a lot more. So make sure you join us for that. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And, of course, let's go Islanders.